China suppression of Uyghur Muslim minorities meets UN definition of genocide, report says.
Here's a summary of the article.
NPR's Scott Simon speaks with China expert Adrian Zenz about his research uncovering evidence of birth prevention and mass female sterilization of Uyghur Muslims in China. A new report in Foreign Policy says that China's suppression of Uyghurs, Kazakhs and other chiefly Muslim ethnic minorities in northwest China now meets the United Nations definition of genocide, mass sterilization, forced abortions and mandatory birth control, part of a campaign that has swept up more than 1.5 million people and what researcher Adrian Zenz calls probably the largest incarceration of an ethno-religious minority since the Holocaust. ZENZ, that's the minimum goal for 2019, but I personally believe that the actual was closer, probably to 90%. Simon, it is notoriously difficult to do research on the Chinese government, and specifically their policies on the Uyghur population. ZENZ, I have long argued that the atrocity in the region is a cultural genocide, not a literal genocide. The reason why now this has changed, we do need to probably call it a genocide, is quite simply because the evidence now, for the first time, very specifically meets one of the 5 criteria set forth by the United Nations Convention for the Punishment and Prevention of the Crime of Genocide from 1948, which specifically says the suppression of birth. ZENZ, I think China needs to face consequences by exclusion or sanctioning from multilateral institutions, either political or possibly economic sanctions, given that we also have a situation of forced labor. Simon, Adrian Zenz is a senior fellow in China Studies at the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation.
This post received a score of 75,000, with an upvote ratio of 93%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
It's absolutely genocide. Now it's important what the world is going to do about it.
Hitler taught us that appeasement doesn't work, then again Hitler didn't have a population numbering over 1 billion and nukes.
The appeasement wasn't about the genocide. The rest of Europe didn't care about that. They only tried appeasement, and then war, when Hitler started marching into other people's countries. Once the war was ongoing, the genocide was just good PR.
China are also no stranger to killing their own people. I'll just point out wasn't attempting to claim it was a genocide, but rather that it wasn't just an arbitrary mass starvation. People were singled out and murdered in huge numbers. I was also trying to point out that China have done this kind of thing before, after something like the Holocaust. Genocide or mass murder unfortunately isn't enough of a reason to use military force for most nations, especially against a power like China.
That is to say, it was not, to quote the UN itself, done with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial or religious group. Even if millions of people were tortured to death, unless they were killed by the CCP with the specific intent to destroy one or more of the aforementioned groups, it would not constitute genocide. Democide is a broader category defined by the murder of any person by their government, including politicide, and mass murder. Again, I don't want to diminish anything you're saying, nor am I saying that genocide is any worse than mass democide because, really, 45 million lives is 45 million lives, ethnically targeted or not. The so-called Great Leap Forward was many shades of horrible and despicable things, but genocide was one of the few it was not. I think I've read about some aspects that would fit that definition a bit better, e.g. the Great Leap Forward with respect to Tibetans, but it also doesn't help that quite a few people disagree with the UN's definition, and many of them just kind of use the term however they prefer, often without even explaining what they mean by it and how it might differ from the conventional meaning.
Samantha Power's book deals with the definition of the crime and how that definition came about.
It's been meeting them for a few years. Ya geniuses. Editing before disabling inbox replies. Since I can't be asked to read much less reply to anyone, people further down the thread are falling into the good old attack the person, not their argument fallacy. This genocide is real and has been ongoing for years.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.